I suppose I better start right at the beginning and how I got involved in stuff, all sorts of activism, and a lot of Hunt Saboteurs stuff in my early days. So how did that all happen? Well, it really started with my sister's first husband. When she started going out with him, I think I was about 18 at the time, and he was a vegetarian. And my parents, especially my mum, didn't like this, thought he was a crank. Saying she's got an even worse boyfriend now, he's nutcase, vegetarian. I was very curious about this. I'd never really heard about vegetarians before. I thought, I asked him, what's all this about being vegetarian? And he said, well, it's because we don't need to kill animals for food. We can live perfectly healthily without doing that. And he'd been a vegetarian from when he was a young lad, and he was a really good athlete. He represented the county at athletics. So I thought, it's not done him any harm. And I was a big meat eater. I was one of these people that sucked marrow out of bones, and I ate bacon rind, stuff like that. And so I was desperate to find a kind of flaw in his argument, to find an excuse to carry on eating meat. And I couldn't really, because this guy really fits, and he'd been a vegetarian for years. So I decided I had to go vegetarian. So my sister and I both went vegetarian at the same time, and told me mum. She immediately said, go out in the garden and eat the grass, it needs cutting. Anyway, I was vegetarian for a couple of years, and I suppose like a lot of people that go veggie without knowing any more than that, I really was still eating lots of animal products. The meat that I previously ate was just replaced with eggs and cheese, so it probably wasn't making a lot of difference. But then one day in a health food shop, it was a couple of years later, I picked up a copy of the Vegetarian Society's magazine. And in there was an article in there about veganism, there was stuff in there about hunting, about animal experiments, about the fur trade. I was absolutely horrified, because obviously I knew that animals were killed for us to eat them, and I didn't agree with that, and I was a vegetarian. I didn't know about these other things. I didn't know about the dairy industry, the egg industry, all the slaughter and suffering of animals that goes into that. I didn't know about hunting, any of these things. And immediately I was just horrified, and I thought, right, I've got to go vegan now, and I've got to kind of do something about all this. It's absolutely horrific. And so within a couple of weeks I'd gone vegan, and around about the same time there was a news item on television, and it was about the Hunt Saboteurs at the Hunt somewhere, I think somewhere in the east of England it was anyway. And they were at the meat of the hunt, and they were being whipped by the riders, And I thought that's just shocking that they're there trying to save foxes, and they're being attacked. So I thought, right, I'm going to get involved in that. I'm going to help those people. And so that's what I did. I actually got in touch with the League Against Cruel Sports. They put me in touch with the Hunt Saboteurs Association, and I got involved with the nearest Hunt Sab group to me, which was in Northampton. And this all happened very quickly. I kind of, as soon as I knew what was happening to animals, I wanted to do something about it, just kind of immediately. And I kind of, I kind of wonder where that came from. I never really thought of this, but when John Hochschild was writing my biography, he asked me, he said, well, was there anything in your early life that kind of indicated that you were going to kind of campaign for animals? And I thought about it, and I thought, in actual fact, there were a few things that happened when I was young that kind of, I suppose, showed what I was going to be like. I remember going with my family to the safari park at Woburn. Yeah, horrible places, horrible. But anyway, you know, we went there for a day out. There was we went out on a boat on a lake with a few other people, and there were seals in this lake, and the guy that was steering the boat had this bucket full of fish, dead fish, and he was throwing them in the water to attract the seals so the people on the boat could take photographs of the seals. But one of the seals was a bit impatient for the fish, and this seal jumped on the boat and started to grab the fish out of the bucket. And the guy steering the boat picked up an oar, he had an oar in the boat, and started beating this seal to drive the seal off the boat. And everyone kept really quiet, but I had to go at him. You know, I swore at him, said he was a cruel bastard, and he should lose his job and all this sort of thing. And everyone else was like really embarrassed. You know what people are like when you speak out like that? They're kind of, especially my family. And then when I got home, I called the place up and demanded that this guy be given the sack. So that was one incident. Another incident, I remember a friend of mine, I went round to his house, and he had an air gun, or a couple of air guns, and we were shooting at cans. And then he saw some birds, and he said, "Oh, I'm going to shoot those birds." But thankfully, he'd run out of ammunition. So he said, "I've got to go in the house, get some ammunition to shoot the birds." And of course, as soon as we went in the house, I scared the birds away. When he came out, they weren't there. So that was a little incident, when I was probably about 11 years old. Probably the biggest one was when I was a bit later on in my teens. I was taking the family dog for a walk in the local park, and there was a guy there. He was the caretaker at a local school and known to be a not very pleasant character. And he was beating, he had an old English sheepdog, and he was beating this dog with the dog's lead, with the lead. And I immediately had to go at him. Said, why are you beating this dog? Stop beating the dog. Why are you beating her? He said, it's because she won't come back to me when I call her. So I said, well, of course she's not going to come back to you when you call her if you're going to beat her with the lead. So I was absolutely furious, and I wanted to say something to this guy so that he would never beat the dog again, because I thought, well, next time he wants to beat the dog, I might not be there. So how can I deter him from ever beating the dog again? So what I said to him was, if I ever see you beating that dog again, I'm gonna get a gallon of petrol, I'm gonna pour it over you, and I'm gonna set fire to you. very moderate. Very moderate way of dealing with it. Anyway, so he was shaking from head to foot, and I walked off with my dog. I went home and told my mum what had happened. And anyway, the next day she was out shopping. She came home and said to me, that the man, the caretaker that you had an argument with yesterday about the dog? I said, yeah. She said, he's dead. He's dead. He died that night of a heart attack. Oh. And I kind of like to think it might have been something to do with what I said. Anyway, let's move. So there we are, yeah. So I didn't get charged with that one, thankfully. Oh yeah, they still do me for that, can they? Yeah. Anyway, so back to when I started sabbing. Now I got involved with the group at the time in Northampton, and the guy that ran the group was really strange, because he was a male witch, this guy. And I remember going around his house, he had a room in his house with a big pentacle in the middle of the room, and all sorts of weird stuff all around the outside, and it was really cold in there. And I said to him, what's all this about? He said, this is where I do all the magic, the witchcraft. So I said to him, well, why'd you bother going and sabbing? Why can't you just magic the hunt away? And he said, well, don't stretch as far as that. So anyway, I was involved with that group of people for a while, and then I started off my own hunt sab group in Luton, and go out in my little mini every Saturday with a few friends. Sometimes I'd use my sister's car. I remember once having the windscreen broken by a member of the hunt who hit the windscreen with the riding crop. And we were very dedicated. And sometimes what we'd do, if there was a particularly violent hunt, we'd actually go there. I'm sure people in this room have done this. Go there. If they didn't know us, we'd go there and pretend to be members of the hunt, and we'd pretend we'd seen a fox and tell them and send them all off in the wrong direction looking for a non-existent fox. Because what we'd do, we'd holler like we'd seen a fox. And you got all these hunt supporters. They want to kind of, be in with the hunt. So then they'd pretend they'd seen the fox and they'd holler. And of course, the hunt people believed them because they'd been going for years, but they haven't really seen the fox. They were just copying us. So we'd do that as well, and it would be a regular thing. But one thing that happened was I got very concerned, along with a few other people, that there was a particular form of hunting that we couldn't really do very much about, and that was cub hunting in the early part of the season, when they're training the hounds to get the taste of the blood of foxes, and they basically surround the wood and send the hounds in, and they block the earths, and they just massacre the foxes. And there wasn't really much we could do about that, because it wasn't as if they were following the trail that we could interrupt. So a few of us decided, well, what about if we go the night before, the early hours of the morning, to the hunt kennels, and we do some damage to their vehicles, so they can't actually go out hunting in the first place. So we thought, well, that's a really good idea, but we can't do that as hunt saboteurs, because the hunt sabs tried to keep within the law. So we thought, well, we've got to form a different organisation to do that. So I remember there was 6 of us, and we had this meeting it was a basement cafe in London, and we were huddled in the corner discussing what we were going to do, and we decided to form an organisation called the Band of Mercy. And the reason we chose that name was because the Band of Mercy was the name of an RSPCA youth group in the 19th century that actually were like really radical compared with what the RSPCA is today. I mean, these people used to go and they damage guns used by shooters and things like that. And we thought, that's great. We want to revive the spirit of that. So we called our group the Band of Mercy. And we kind of started off going to hunt kennels at about 1 or 2 o'clock in the morning, early in the morning before a cub hunt, and we damaged their vehicles, we damaged their Land Rovers, we damaged their hound wagon and stuff like that. It wasn't like big loads of damage. We'd do things like, slash the tyres, and we put tacks in the locks and glue and in the ignition and stuff like that. And we used to leave little notes under the windscreen wiper saying, "You've been visited by the Band of Mercy." And but then we started thinking, well, look, we can extend this to other things. We found out about a vivisection lab being built in Milton Keynes, and it was a place they were going to do radiation experiments, this laboratory. There'd been a lot of local concern about it, but it had still got planning permission, and it was being built. So a couple of us went there on a couple of occasions, waited till all the workers had gone, and then we tried to set fire to this place. And we didn't burn it down, but we caused a lot of damage to it. And then another occasion, they used to have, up on the Wash in Lincolnshire, there used to be a slaughter of baby seals every year. These fishermen used to use go out in fishing boats and then launch inflatables from the fishing boats and go onto the sandbanks and shoot the baby seals for their fur. And so what we did was a couple of us went up there a couple of days before this seal hunt was due to begin, and we actually set fire to the 2 fishing boats that day. I mean, obviously went in there and checked, made sure nobody or nothing was on there in the boats, and we set fire to these 2 fishing boats, and one was destroyed and one was badly damaged. And the consequence of that was that the seal hunt didn't happen that year, and in fact it's never happened since. So that was like a very early victory. That was a very early victory for direct action. But I mean, eventually the inevitable happened, and a couple of us got arrested. What had happened is we'd been given this list by someone that detailed places that bred animals for experiments. And they were really quite easy targets, because in those days, nowadays everywhere's got security, because security cameras and stuff like that is so cheap. In those days it wasn't the case. This was before computers, before the digital age. So you'd have laboratories would have security because there was expensive stuff in there. But places that bred and supplied the animals didn't, because they didn't have expensive equipment. So we focused on attacking those places and damaging their vehicles and stuff like that. And it was at one of those places a couple of us got caught, which was at Bicester in Oxfordshire. And basically a security guard there had seen us. We didn't think he'd seen us, but he had. Called the police, they came and arrested us. And basically we'd gone on a holiday of destruction, I suppose. We were on a camping holiday, and basically what we'd do is we'd camp near one of these places and then go and do damage at the place, and then go to the next place and camp there and do the same. And we'd been doing this day after day. And so there was a lot of evidence in our car of stuff we'd done. But we parked it, a couple of miles away on a housing estate, and hoping that if we got caught, that we'd just be caught for what we were caught for and nothing else. But what they did, ironically, with the police, was they used the tracker dog to track where we come from, and they found the car and got lots of evidence. And we both ended up being sentenced to 3 years in prison. And the first thing I found when I was put in prison was that there was no provision for vegans. There was no vegan diet. If you said you were a vegetarian, you got a vegetarian diet. And if you said you were a Jew or a Muslim, you'd get the relevant diet for them. But there was no right to a vegan diet. And they basically said to me, "Oh, you'll just have to eat what you can out of the vegetarian diet." And I said, "Well, that's just not good enough." So I went on hunger strike, and that lasted 10 days. And in the end, the guy from the kitchen came and said, "Right, okay, we've decided to give you a vegan diet, and we want to talk to you about, what you can eat." So I did get a vegan diet. I mean, it was mainly beans and lentils, but at least it was better than just eating potatoes and cabbage. So anyway, I got released from that prison sentence after 12 months, because it was the first time I'd been in prison. I got let out early, and I kind of carried on. With hunt sabbing after that. I got involved with the Hunt Sabs committee. I was on the Hunt Sabs committee, and I think it was the committee that I was on that actually thought of the name Howl for the Hunt Saboteurs magazine. That was when it was first created, all those years ago, way back in the 1970s. And we carried on doing the same sort of thing, carried on sabbing hunts, and at the time there was otter hunting, they used to hunt otters in the summer months when they weren't fox hunting. There was the otter hunting, and then otters, I think, became protected, so they couldn't hunt otters, so they decided to hunt mink. And so we go out and try and sabotage these, go along the riverbanks and try and sabotage them. And there was a guy that was the master of one of the hunts, one of the mink hunts that we frequently were involved in disputes with. And this guy was called, his name was Stafford Babbage, and we used to call him Stuffed Cabbage. And one of the funniest, my funniest memories of hunt sabbing was one time he was climbing over a barbed wire fence, and he ripped the arse completely out of his trousers, and they were all flapping, hanging down. He tried to carry on hunting all day as if nothing had happened with his arse exposed, because he didn't want to admit to us that he was embarrassed about it. So anyway, the other thing that was going on in those days, it's actually one of the things. I mean, the Hunting Act doesn't stop very much, as you know. The fox hunting's still going on. But one thing it has stopped is the organised hare coursing. The big organised hare coursing events don't take place anymore in this country. But of course, at the time they did, and the biggest one was something called the Waterloo Cup, which was an old car up near Liverpool. And so loads of us would go up there to sabotage the Waterloo Cup, and we'd actually all run onto the coursing field and to disrupt it. And I remember there was and there'd be loads of police there and everything. And one time when I did that, I remember there was one of the police grabbed hold of this woman's hair and was dragging her by the hair, and I hit this policeman to stop him, and he let go. And then I got arrested, and a load of us got arrested. And they arrested so many of us that we couldn't fit into the normal police vehicles, so they had to get a horse box. They got this horse box and put us all in the horse box to take us to the police station. I think in the end, I don't think I got done for assault on the copper. We just all got bound over in the end, and that was that. And the other thing we used to do was go and disrupt the grouse shoots up on the grouse moors in Derbyshire. And I used to hire a minibus or a transit van, and everyone would be in the back, and we'd go up there. And I remember one occasion, I just stood in front of a guy that was shooting, and he pointed the gun at me and he said, "I'll bloody well shoot you." Just like that. And I said, "Well, yeah, go and shoot me then, you'll have life in prison. You'll have life in prison, just shoot me." I think now, that's mad to say that. But anyway, all his mates said, "Put the gun down, don't be so stupid," So he put the gun down in the end, and I wasn't shot. Another occasion, we found that up on top of the hill on one of these moors, there was just like a kind of brick hut, and the shooters, they just finished shooting for the morning, and they were on their way kind of up the hill towards this brick hut, but we got there first. And inside the brick hut was loads of drinks, there was loads of beer and everything that they were going to have. And they could see us, they were down, but they could see us, they were all waving their arms and, leave that alone, it's our property and all that. But anyway, we got in this brick, we drank loads of the beer, we were drinking the beer and waving at them from the top of the hill. And then what we didn't drink, we destroyed, you see, so when they got there wasn't anything for them. But anyway, I got back involved with the other sort of direct action really quite soon. And what I was pleased about was, I kind of thought with going to prison it would put people off. I thought, well, I've been sent to prison, people are going to be frightened, and that's going to be the end of it. And I was really pleasantly surprised that there was a lot of people coming up to me saying, "I want to do that, I want to, damage laboratories, I want to, get involved in that type of thing." And I was really, I was really pleased about that. But one thing people were saying was they didn't really like the name of the organisation. They weren't keen on the name Band of Mercy because it sounded rather like some religious organisation. It didn't mention animals. So that was when we decided to change the name to the Animal Liberation Front because it was exactly what we were about. But we kind of carried on. Very similar to what we were doing before. But I remember one particular raid that we did on a hunt kennels. I think it was somewhere in Buckinghamshire, and there were three of us. And one of the guys he'd been like a kind of paramilitary guy in the army, or he claimed he'd been a paramilitary guy. I mean, he said, "Well, just follow me." He said, "I'm experienced at doing raids. You just follow what I'm doing." And so he drove like about 2 or 3 miles around the back of his place. He parked the car in a field, covered the car all in branches so it couldn't be seen, and he said, "Right, now what we've got to do is we've got to crawl across the fields to the back of these kennels, see, and then we'll damage their vehicles." So we were crawling along for ages and ages all across these fields, and he was telling us, "Get your heads down," and thought he'd heard a noise or something like that. And then instead of coming out at the back of the kennels, we'd come out about a mile down the road. So me and the other guy said, "Bugger this." He said to him, "Just you go and get the car." And me and the other guy, we just walked straight down the front drive of the kennels, damaged their vehicles, and he brought the car round and we jumped in it. So sometimes it's better not to listen to people that claim they're some kind of commando. So anyway, I carried on with the ALF stuff. Eventually got arrested again for breaking in somewhere and rescuing some mice that were going to be sent for experiments. And I got sentenced to 12 months in prison. When I came out from that sentence, I had a lot of the media getting in touch with me. Whenever there was an ALF action, the media would get in touch with me because I'd been in prison a couple of times and knew who I was. And so they'd always ask me, "Well, why did this happen? What's the reason for it?" So I'd be explaining it, and I kind of became a press officer in that sense. So I kind of thought, okay, I've been in prison a couple of times now. I'll just concentrate on that. I'll concentrate on doing the press office and talking to the media. And that kind of carried on for a while, but of course I couldn't, I couldn't carry on doing that. And I got back in, soon I got back involved in the action again, so I got back involved in doing stuff. And one of the things that we did was we broke into the offices of the Shooting Times, which at the time, I don't know whether it still is now, at the time it was in Windsor. And of course there's like loads of police around there, because of course there's Windsor Castle and it's where the Queen goes and all that. But anyway, we managed to get into this place. I remember it was me that had to go in there because I was smallest. Like we kind of cut this little window out in their door, and kind of I crawled in, let the other people in, and we wrecked a load of this stuff, and we actually flooded the place. We blacked all the sinks and that and turned the taps on and flooded the offices of the Shooting Times, which was very satisfactory. But the other type of thing that used to happen with the Hunt Sabs is, at the time, I mean now it's known as the Countryside Alliance, but at the time the organisation which defended and promoted hunting was called the British Field Sports Society, and they had an office in London which was just kind of around the corner from Scotland Yard. And I remember on a couple of occasions we invaded their office. We just invaded their office. We'd get someone dressed as, because you couldn't just walk in, you had to ring the bell and they'd look to see who it was. So we'd get someone to dress all smart in a suit or to wear tweeds or something. We'd all be hiding, and they'd ring the bell and let them in, and then we'd all burst in, and we'd just take over the place. We were answering the phones and everything. And there was one occasion, there was like Colonel Blimp that was in charge of it, the main guy there, and he had an office, and a few of us went in his office, And we got everything, all the stuff out, the filing cabinets, everything, we threw it all over the place in the office, his office. And then the police came. And they said to us, right, okay, he said, we don't really want to, you know, arrest people, we don't want all the paperwork, but unless you go and tidy his office up, you'll be arrested. You got to tidy his office. And I said, all right, officer, you know, we will tidy his office. And all the other people was going, what's the matter with you? You've gone mad, you don't know how to tidy that bugger's office. What are you talking about? And I said, no, come with me, let's go in there. And so what we did was, yeah, we did tidy his office, but what we did was, we put everything in the wrong file. So it looked all tidy, but it was worse than being on a block, so everything was all in the wrong thing. So the police, they let us go. They said, oh, well done, lads, you know, well done, you know, it's just good that, you know, you can go. And of course, when he went in the office trying to find anything, he wouldn't be able to. And the other place that we used to invade was the National Coursing Club, and that was in London as well, and that was the people that are, you know, in charge of the hair coursing. And we burst in their place one day, and there was this young woman at the reception, and she was frightened. We felt sorry for her, so we bought her a bunch of flowers. We said, look, we're not against you, you're just kind of working here, like, so here's a bunch of flowers. And we went up into the main offices, and there was like, once again, there's a Colonel Blimp in there and some other people. And we had this banner that said, stop splitting hairs on it, H-A-R-E-S, stop splitting hairs. We hung it out the window, and like we kind of tried to barricade the door, but then the police came and we got evicted. Didn't get arrested, just got evicted from there. And then they moved their offices to another place, and we thought, oh, we'll invade those offices. So we went in their new offices, and we got a great big oak table, and we put it against the door, and the police were outside going, let us in, you know, you've got to let us in. We went, no, we're not letting you in. And all the people in there were going mad, and we were like, they had this card index system, and we got all the cards out of the index system, and we were shuffling them like playing cards and putting them back so they're all mixed up. But eventually there was one of the people that kind of came on the occupation with us, because we were going to stay there for ages, say, well, we'll stay all night, you know. I think we had sandwiches and stuff, you know, we were all right. But there was one person lost their nerve and said, I want to be let out, I don't want to stay. So we had to let her out, and of course when we let her out, the police come bursting in and arrested us all. But what we did, we nicked a load of this stuff, all their loads of documents and that, and we had friends down in the road below, and we threw all this stuff out the window to our friends to take away, to go through later. So once again, we got arrested, but we didn't get charged or anything, because they said, well, you haven't damaged anything, you're not stolen. I mean, we had stolen things, but they didn't know. So once again, we got let off. So another occasion to do with the British Field Sports Society, there were, I wasn't involved in this, but 3 friends of mine were. They went late one night to break into the British Field Sports Society. And it was in an office block, but there was someone working in one of the other offices that heard them, that heard the noise, and phoned the police. And the guys, the ALF guys, like looked out the window and saw some blue flashing lights. They thought, oh no, the police are coming. So what they did, they ran down into the grounds of the building, and they hid in a shed, and they were hiding in the shed trying to keep quiet. And then they heard these voices saying, right up against the wall, you're under arrest. And they thought, what's that? What it was some detectives, you know, the call went out, oh, there's been a break-in. Some detectives came, and the detectives were all searching around in the grounds, and some ordinary police came, and the ordinary police arrested the detectives. Put them up against the wall and said, right, you know, you're nicked and that, and they're going, no, I'm the chief inspector, and they go, don't give us that shit, you know, you're nicked, and they go, yeah, and then they got the cards out, and they're going, oh, sorry sir, and all that, you see. And when they finally, they broke in, they found the shed and got in there, and these guys were like, doubled up, like pissing themselves laughing. They got taken to the police station like in stitches, but I think they ended up getting 18 months in jail, but it probably was worth it for that. Anyway, so, right, yeah, eventually, as I said, I got back involved in stuff again. ended up I ended up being charged with conspiracy. And basically how it happened was there was a group of people in Sheffield who they invented like an incendiary device, a timed incendiary device that kind of fitted in a cigarette packet. And what it was a campaign against the fur trade, because at the time loads of department stores had fur departments. And now these days there's only one, and that's Harrods. But in those days, back in this would be the kind of early to mid 80s, virtually every town, the department store would have a fur department. So, you know, they thought, right, what do we do about that? So what their plan was, all these places had sprinkler systems. So they thought, if we can start a small fire in these places, and the sprinklers will go off, and the sprinklers will cause like loads of damage to the store. So that was the plan. And so to do this, they invented this little incendiary device thing. And anyway, because I was a press officer, I got this message of, can you go to Sheffield and meet some people at the station? So I thought, yeah, all right. And I met them, and they took me to this house, and they got this incendiary device there, and they said, we're showing you this because you're the press officer, and you're going to have the press on to you about this, and so we want to explain to you what it's all about. See, so that's what happened. But then eventually, how they got arrested, they made the mistake really of starting off in their own town. They put one of these things in Rackham's department store in Sheffield, and the sprinklers went off. It caused hundreds of thousands of pounds worth of damage. But what happened was the police obviously started looking for people locally. And what they did, funny enough, they got the drug squad to investigate it, because the drug squad were the experts at surveillance. And what they did was they started watching the animal rights movements, and they kind of latched onto a particular group of people. And that they noticed that these people were having meetings in this first floor flat that belonged to a couple of them. And what they did was they got permission from the guy in the ground floor flat to put a listening device up through the ceiling. So there was a listening device like under the floorboards listening to the meetings, you see. And you know, during these meetings, my name was kind of mentioned in a sort of joking way. Oh, Ronnie Lee will love this when it all starts happening and all that kind of thing they were saying. So I got arrested. They ended up all being arrested, and they came down to London and arrested me. And and when they came in our office, we had an office in Hammersmith in West London, and they took loads of papers away and stuff. And I mean, I ended up being done for conspiracy to cause criminal damage and inciting other people to cause criminal damage. And I ended up, because what they did was they gave everyone ranks. I mean, of course, the Animal Liberation Front was like, there were no ranks in the ALF. It was like autonomous groups, really. But of course, you know, for the purpose of kind of giving certain people longer sentences, what the police did, they gave everyone ranks, and I was the general, and then there was other people. Someone was my lieutenant, and then there was area commanders, and then there were people that just foot soldiers, right? And because I was a general, I ended up getting 10 years for being a general. And I was out of that. I was spent 6 years and 8 months in prison. The one thing that had got better was now it was like much easier to get a vegan diet. Because that was great, wasn't it? It was almost worth going in there. But you had to be a member of the Vegan Society. You had to be a card-carrying member of the Vegan Society. You had to have this little red card. So what happened was loads of ordinary prisoners joined the Vegan Society because they thought the food's better. So you get some like, you know, like a backman, oh, I'm vegan. Because what they wanted was, because you used to get this goodie bag, like soya milk and peanut butter and different things, to supplement the diet, and what they do is they sell it for tobacco, you see. So you've got like loads of them become vegan. It's like the most members of vegan society have ever had, all these criminals join. But I think eventually, I think now it's just, you can go in prison and say you're a vegan and you get a vegan diet just the same as if you're a vegetarian. So the vegan side are kind of lost out now and they don't get all these members. So I mean, when I came out of prison, that was in 1992. That's when I met my wife Louise. There she is. Yay! And we started adopting greyhounds, and through that we learned about the suffering and slaughter that's caused by the greyhound racing industry. And no one in this country was campaigning against it, so we thought, oh right, we'll start a campaign against it, because it's a kind of gap that no one's doing anything about. So we started an organisation called Greyhound Action, which kind of actually lasted for 13 years, and we organised demonstrations outside dog tracks and information stores and stuff like that. And partly really because of that, there was a lot of these tracks closed. We actually stopped loads of new tracks from being opened, and quite a few of the existing tracks actually eventually closed down because really people constantly outside demonstrating, educating because a lot of the people going to these races weren't really cruel people. They're just going for a night out. And when you educated them about what happened to the dogs, they thought, well, right, next time we won't go to greyhound race, we'll go somewhere else. So it was like cutting their attendances, and so a lot of those places closed. And then after 13 years, all the people took the campaign over, and it's got even better since then, and even more dog tracks have closed and stuff. And then after that I got involved in kind of vegan campaigning for veganism, because I thought, well, it's all the direct action and everything, it's absolutely brilliant, and it's great that people do that, but kind of why is it that people go hunting? Why is it that people want to kill badgers, cull badgers? Where does that come from? And to me, that comes from speciesism. That comes from an attitude of human supremacism, humans thinking they're more important than other animals. And I thought, well, it's kind of important to challenge that at a fundamental level. And I feel that by promoting veganism, we're doing that. We're actually doing that, and that's why I kind of wanted to get involved in doing that, and that's very important. And I think the other thing to remember is that it's we kind of look at the situation. There's these nasty characters that kill wildlife. There's the people that go hunting, the people that go shooting, the people that are involved in the badger cull. And it's really important that they're stopped and that action is taken against them. But in a way, we're kind of, all of us are really involved in the slaughter of wildlife and the killing of wildlife, simply because of the way our society operates, that we're part of, because of human impact on the environment, because of our industrialised consumerist society. I mean, for instance, if you look at the badger cull, I think they're aiming to kill about 100,000 badgers, aren't they? Is that right? Certainly, it's a big figure. But every year, 50,000 badgers get killed on the roads by motor vehicles. Every year 100,000 foxes get killed by motor vehicles. Every year at least 30 million birds are killed by motor vehicles. And we can't just say, well, that's just an accident. It's not an accident. It's because human beings have deliberately put that in place. And it's very difficult because we're all bound up in that. You can't say to people, well, don't use your car, because how are they going to function? You know, and we have to I think we have to do something to change that. You know, I think we've got to massively improve public transport so people don't need to use cars a lot. I think we have to massively reduce speed limits. I'd like to see a national speed limit of 30 miles an hour and 12 to 20 miles an hour in urban areas and along country lanes. You know, that's really important because we can't just say that death toll is an accident. And there's other things like, for instance, fracking, and fracking is horrendous for wildlife. You know, the noise, the lights, the disturbance, horrendous for wildlife. The HS2 railway, that's going to destroy 400, if it goes ahead, hopefully it won't. That's going to destroy 400 wildlife areas. That's going to be like, you know, absolutely horrendous for wildlife. And then, you know, there's other things like in the last 40 years, 50% of the wild animals in the world have been wiped out. We've lost 50% in the last 40 years. And in terms of the of mammals in the world, 60% of mammals in the world are animals that are kept and reared for food, for human consumption. 60%, 36% of mammals on the earth are humans, and only 4% are wild animals. Only 4% are wild animals. And if we look at birds, only 30% of birds in the world are wild birds. 70% are poultry that are kept on poultry farms for human consumption. This is the sort of thing that, you know, how the human lifestyle has devastated wildlife. And it's really important, if we really care about wildlife, that we need to do something about that as well. And the other thing is the other horrendous thing, perhaps the worst thing of all in terms of the threat to wildlife, is the climate crisis, climate change. Already species are going extinct because of that, and that's a horrendous threat. And once again, that is something. I mean, that really dates from the Industrial Revolution. It's the Industrial Revolution that's to blame for that. You know, once again, something humans have done to the world without any regard for how that affects other animals that live on the planet. And of course, the main one of the main causes of that is animal farming. And so it's, once again, going vegan, educating people to go vegan is a huge way of protecting wildlife, because it's really important in combating climate change. But there's no reason why people can't do two things at once. You know, I mean, I remember when we had a hunt saboteurs group in North London, and the two or three of us that ran the group, we were vegan. But when people joined, they weren't vegan, and they'd say to us, oh, you know, we want to save the fox. We're not interested in this all vegan nonsense. We like meat, you know, we just want to save the fox. But really, almost everyone that joined our group, within just 2 or 3 weeks, had become vegan, because we'd explained it to them, we'd talked to them. Okay? So, but I remember there was one guy who, he adamantly refused to go vegan. He goes, no matter what we said, I'm not going vegan. There's no way you're going to get me to go vegan. Anyway, I think there was one night, you know, we'd had a few drinks. So what we did was we tied him up in a sleeping bag, and we put him in a cupboard, and we said, right, we're not going to let you out till you promise to go vegan. See? Anyway, after about 20 minutes, there was this muffling sound coming from the cupboard, and knocking, and we opened the door, and he was going, oh, I promised to go vegan. So I said, all right, we'll let you out, you've got a promise to go vegan. Well, I lost touch with him, you know, in recent years, but I know 20 years later he was still vegan, right? So I think what you all need to do really is get out there and save the hunt.
Lock your cupboards.
Get out there and save the badgers, and make sure that you've got a sleeping bag in a cupboard. Thank you very much. much time have I got? Is there time for questions? Yeah. Has to be. Lovely. Is anyone? You've got to have loads of questions. Who's got a question? Got to it. Yeah.
So, are you a founding member of the ALF then?
Yeah, I'm one that people often say, "Oh, Ronnie Lee, ALF founder," but it's not really true. I'm not the only. There were 6 of us.
You are?
I was one.
They debate that to this day. Who were there and they said, he says this, but that's not true. Sue said that, Super. She said it. He is. It's just bashfulness and
I'm ever so bashful. It kind of depends on how you look at it, you see, because when the ALF really comes from the Band of Mercy, and there were 6 of us that founded the Band of Mercy. So you could say that there were 6 people that founded the ALF. I mean, one of those people very sadly died quite a few years ago. She was a brilliant, Sue Smith. She was a brilliant, I can say her name now because she's dead sadly. She was a brilliant ALF activist that ever got arrested and did loads of stuff. The other people, I think one of them's disappeared. Who else was there? The others are still involved in helping animals, either involved in rescue or kind of campaigning in a quiet way. So they're still doing stuff. I think the reason why the focus is on me is because I'm kind of more out there, you know, because I'm kind of still like standing up here giving a talk and stuff, you know, so people think, oh, it's Ronnie Lee that founded it, but it really wasn't just me. There were other people involved in it as well. Don't have it. You weren't even born. I bet. Well, I think the thing is that probably those people, they wouldn't have been at that original meeting that we had. Because I base it on that. I'm saying that meeting when we decided to do that, there were 6 people. We're having a domestic here there. There must be other questions. Anyone else?
Ronnie, have you got any regrets, not for what you did, but maybe organisations or someone you wished you'd gone after that you didn't?
Oh, there's loads of people I wish I'd gone after. There's loads I still go after if I could. It's very difficult. I think I kind of regret mistakes. I mean, obviously, you know, what that led to me being arrested, for instance, like, because really, whenever anyone's arrested, it's to do with they've made a mistake, and you know, but it's easy to say in hindsight about that. But I kind of did my best about that. I remember when I started off being involved, like in direct action with the Band of Mercy, I was actually working in a solicitor's office, and there was. My boss used to go to the magistrate court and defend people in the magistrate's court, and he'd have a police sergeant prosecuting people, you know. But he was really good friends with the police sergeant, and when the police sergeant retired from the police, he came to work at the solicitor's office. So what I did was I made friends with this police sergeant. I used to go and talk to him, and when we were planning a raid, we were thinking, well, we need to break in, we need to do this. I'd say to him, I'm really interested in forensics. And I went, can you tell me if someone does this and that and the other, can they be caught? And he'd go, oh no, I don't think so. We haven't got the technology for that yet. And I thought, oh, that's great, right? That's what we do. And I remember when I was eventually caught, and I had to go. I had a contract of employment there, and then when I got arrested, I didn't want to carry on working there anyway, and they didn't want me there, obviously. So I had to go in and like sign off this contract, and I saw him. Harry, his name was, the police sergeant, and I saw him. He looked at me and he gave me this kind of knowing smile. He wasn't cross. He thought it was funny. He gave me this kind of knowing smile. Oh yeah, all this time I know why you were so interested in police forensics. Right, anyone else? Could be. Oh, yeah.
When you were in prison, apart from people sort of pretending to go vegan for the diet, did you sort of manage to get across to the other prisoners in general? Were they come across the cause, or did you manage to have any influence over them, or how you treated in general by the other prisoners?
I don't know whether people heard the questions about how was I treated by other prisoners. Did I manage to get any of the other ones to go vegan? Yeah, kind of. Yeah, there was actually a lot of sympathy. I think I found it kind of quite hard to understand what I was in for, why I was in for what I was in for, kind of thing. Because I remember when I was in for taking the mice, rescuing the mice from the laboratory place, that you know, everyone sit round and say what they're in for, you know, and somebody go, well, I broke in a shoe shop, I did this, I did the other, and I'd say, well, I took 120 mice. And they go, oh right, valuable mice, rare mice, were they rare mice you were going to sell and make lots of money? No. And then they found it really hard that you did something that wasn't for financial gain. They found that really difficult to understand. But when I explained it, yeah, there was some, they go, you shouldn't be in here, mate, you're not really criminal, and all that kind of thing. But yeah, I mean, there was, yeah, I remember one guy in particular that I was on my, what was it? I think I was on my second prison sentence, and I had this discussion. It was kind of ending up kind of being not an argument, but a disagreement. You know, he was adamant he was never going to be vegan. I'm always going to eat meat. It's a load of nonsense. Blah blah blah. And I was talking to him. I was trying not to, try not to lose my temper, try not to be nasty. He said, and in the end we kind of agreed. I said, look, I've got to go off and do something. We have to agree to differ. We have to agree to differ. So we said, okay, right. Anyway, when I went back in prison the next time, which was a few years later, I saw this guy again. He came up to me and said, oh, hello, Ronnie. You're back in prison again. I said, oh, hello, you're back in prison again. He said, yeah. And he said, do you remember we had that argument about veganism, that discussion? I said, oh, yeah. He said, well, 2 weeks after that, I went vegan. He said, I've been vegan ever since.
Amazing.
He said, what happened was I thought about afterwards. He said, I know I disagreed with you, and I, was very determined to not be vegan. He said, but afterwards I thought about what you said, and I decided you were right, and I went vegan. And I think the example that gives is like, had I been nasty to him, I'd go, oh, you bastard, and all that. He probably wouldn't have gone vegan, because he would have just thought, he's a horrible bloke, I'm not going to think about what he said. But because I was kind of still polite to him, that meant he was still able to think about what I'd said, and he went vegan. I mean, he didn't give up whatever he did criminal-wise. Well, neither did I. But he'd gone vegan, and that was great. So really, it wasn't. I mean, there was really quite a lot of sympathy in there, to be quite honest. It wasn't as if they, once they understood the reasons, and it kind of took a while sometimes to make them understand, but once they understood, there was really a lot of sympathy from the other prisoners. Yeah.
Right. Tell everybody here about when they thought that you cut up a butcher.
Oh yeah, that's really funny. But what they do, this is funny. See, the thing about prison, it's boring. I mean, I wasn't really bored in prison, because I used to do a lot of reading and studying, but quite a lot of blokes get really bored in prison. And so they love rumours, so you get these rumours go round and they really get exaggerated. I remember on my last prison sentence, it was in a semi-open prison where you're allowed to sort of wander around the grounds. And I was sitting outside the library, reading a book outside the library, and there was a footpath just a little bit in front. And these two other prisoners were walking along, and I overheard their conversation. And one said to the other, see that little bloke with glasses sat there? What do you think he's in for? And the other one goes, oh, he looks like a fraudster, he's done fraud. He looks like a fraudster, he's got glasses. If you have glasses in prison, you're a fraudster. So anyway, the other one goes, no, God, he's a dangerous bastard, God, he's dangerous. he cut a butcher right up. He cut a butcher to pieces, slashed him right up a butcher. And the other bloke said, no, he didn't. He said, he did. He's dangerous little bugger he is. And how I got that from, where that came from, I cut a butcher to pieces. I mean, you know, I thought, well, let them believe it. Because another time, I was just going along the corridor in prison, and a guy came up to me and he said, hello, Ronnie. He said, listen, he said, I hear you can have people killed. I hear you can have people killed. I thought, where did that come from? And I said to him, oh, blimey, I said, don't tell anyone that. Don't go spreading that around. I said, I've got enough of a sentence already. I don't want people to know about that. So I thought, it might be quite handy in prison for them to think you can have people killed. So, he said, how do you do it? I said, because at the time there was, they installed a phone in the prison. On my first couple of sentences, you couldn't phone anyone, but then they started allowing prisoners to make phone calls, and they had a pay phone, and you bought this special card so you can make phone calls, see. And every night I'd be on the phone, and I'd be, phoning friends and family up. You'd be allowed like a 10-minute slot on the phone. And this guy said, well, how do you get people killed? I said, I just phone someone up and I just give them the name. And he said, oh, is that why you're on the phone all the time? So I just and then I had another guy come up in this prison. They used to have these trips out. It was in Devon near Newton Abbot. And they used to take, like the kind of more trusted prisoners, they used to take them out camping on Dartmoor, you see. And I got offered to go. I didn't want to go camping on Dartmoor with a load of prisoners. I'd rather be in my cell like reading a book. Anyway, but they come back from one of these trips, and one of these prisoners come to see me, and he said, this other prisoner, he said, this other guy that was on, that was with us on the camping trip, he tried to tread on a frog. And I said, right, okay. I said, I'll have to tell the boys. See? And anyway, about an hour later, the other prisoner, the one that was accused of trying to tread on a frog, he come to see me. He said, Ronnie. He said, please. He said, I didn't try to tread on a frog. It was an accident. I was walking along and a frog just hopped in front of me, and I avoided the frog. I didn't try to tread on the frog. I said, oh really? I said, that's not what I heard. And he said, no. He said, please. He said, you will call the boys off, won't you? Please call the boys off. And I said, I'll tell you what. I said, just this one time, I'll give you a chance. I'll give you the benefit of the doubt. I'll call the boys off this one time. I said, but if I hear of anything, you doing anything bad to animals, then I'll get in touch with them again and they'll be straight back onto it. You go, no, I'll never do anything ever again, Ronnie. And that's what they're like. I think it's probably because of this thing, you see, about being the general. They made out that I was this big general. I think so they kind of thought I was some kind of gangster type gang boss or some like really weird thing like that I could have people killed and I had the boys that did stuff and all. But it was kind of quite handy. It was quite handy in prison to be sort of a big gangster, Right, anyone else? Yeah.
Was there any overlap between the ALF and the regional people like Wall and Seal and all those people?
Yeah. Now, yes, a mention of organisations like Seal and there was Core, and these were in the kind of I think probably early 80s time, and these were animal liberation leagues. You had the Animal Liberation Front, and then you had various people set up what they called Animal Liberation Leagues. So the South East Animal Liberation League, Central Animal Liberation League, and I think there were some others. And basically their tactics was different. The idea of the ALF was that you had a small number of people. You'd have the minimum number of people you needed, really, to go into a raid on a place, and you'd either do damage or you rescue animals or both. And if you're rescuing animals, you probably needed more people. And But anyway, the idea of the Animal Liberation Leagues was completely different. It was to have the maximum number of people and go into a place in the daytime and either take animals or take documents to prove what these places were doing. And these were places involved in animal experiments. And I remember there was a raid on a place, I think it was in Oxfordshire, by the Central Animal Liberation League. And it was a laboratory, and they got in there and they brought out all these dogs. They were just like ordinary dogs. There was an old English sheepdog, and they were just, and basically what they were dogs that had been stolen, where they'd been stolen off the street and sold for animal experiments. And I think one or two of them actually got reunited with the people that had them. You know, so that they were like really good in that. But in terms of an overlap, yeah, some of the people were the same, and some of the people that were active in the ALF were actually active in the Animal Liberation Leagues as well. So there was an overlap in that sense. Anyone else? Yeah.
Can you tell us about your book?
Oh, about my book? Yeah, well, I mean, basically, for quite a number of years, people were saying, oh, you need to write a book. But I can't write a book. I'm not like, I can't write anything that's very long. I could write a little article or something, but I haven't got it in me to write a book. So I thought that what would have to happen is someone would have to write the book. I'd have to dictate the book or something, and someone else would have to write it. And there's a couple of people who said, oh, we'll write a biography of you, and it kind of never got anywhere for different reasons. They weren't able to do it. And then a friend of mine in the United States, John Hochshartner, who's a vegan journalist, and I've never met him personally, but I've been in touch with him on the internet. And he got in touch one day and said, has anyone offered to write your biography? And I said, well no, and he said, do you mind if I do? And I said, no, great, that's absolutely brilliant. And so basically what happened, because he's somewhere in the USA and I'm over here, so what we did was every Sunday, this was going back 2 or 3 years ago, every Sunday we'd have a Skype session, which sometimes lasted 7 or 8 hours, where I'd go through a different period of my life and talk to him about it. And then he'd do a draft chapter of the book, email it to me, and I'd go through it and do the corrections, and that's how we did the book. But the funny thing is, it's kind of, I don't know whether anyone reading the book sees, you probably tell that it's kind of maybe written by someone from the United States, because they've got a different way of saying things, and I have to kind of, and he wasn't that much aware of how we say things over here, so I have to kind of talk in American. I have to say sidewalk instead of pavement and subway instead of underground, because otherwise he wouldn't understand. He didn't know what Harrods was. He said, what's Harrods? And then his wife had to tell him. His wife knew what it was, and she said, it's a department store in London, so. But anyway, it's really funny because they've got different ways of saying things to us, different expressions. And I was telling him about, we had a press office for the ALF in Hammersmith. It was at the top of an office block in Hammersmith, in this kind of little room, and we had it disguised as a tax office. We pretended that we were independent tax advisors, and we had this office, but really it was like the ALF press. Half of it was the ALF press office, and half of it was the ALF Supporters Group office. And anyway, what would happen is, when there was a raid on anywhere, quite often the media would phone me up for a comment. And what happened was, it was something. It was a thing I actually took part in. It was in Tottenham, North London. There was a place that supplied equipment for kind of mutilating chickens. Like stuff that cut their beaks and all that kind of thing, and like cages for battery farms and all that kind of stuff. And we did a raid on these offices and smashed a load of stuff up. And so that was me being the activist, and the next day I was a press officer, you see. So anyway, the local paper phoned me up and said, oh, there's been this raid by the LF, and I kind of said, yeah, it's totally justified, and talked all about what happened to the chickens, you see. But anyway, what had happened was, I mean, they didn't know I'd done it. I was just talking to the press officer, but what they did, was the owner of the guy that owned the poultry place, this equipment manufacturer. The newspaper gave him my phone number. They gave him for some reason the number of our press officer, and he phoned up. And he said, I know, he said, your people have wrecked my business. He says, I know you're in Hammersmith. I'm going to come down to Hammersmith and find you. I'm going to, give you what for. I said, listen, mate, no need to find me. No need to find me. You name a place, I'll meet you and we can fight. I'll meet you and we'll fight. I said, but let me tell you this, when I fight you, I said, I will fight you to the death. I'll fight to death. And he just put the phone down. But anyway, because that's not where the kind of humour ends on that, because when I was talking to John about this, I told him about that incident. And he sent me back he sent me back what he'd written. And he said, the owner of the establishment phoned Ronnie up and he blew him off. Because apparently that's what they... And I said, you can't have that in the book. I said, do you know what that means over here? He said, no, I have no idea, Ronnie. I said, no. I said, you can't have that, so that had to be changed to something else. Right, anyone else? There's got to be more, because I've got more funny things. I'll tell you another... Sorry? 5 minutes. I've got 5 minutes. Yeah. I'll tell you a funny story. We had a representative where I live of the Countryside Alliance. And I mean, he was a really horrible man. He was always writing in the paper about how wonderful hunting was. And I remember my Louise's mum, Celia, I don't know, she used to be a great campaigner for animals. And she was doing a stall in the local town, and she had a collection tin on her stall, and this bloody hump bloke grassed her up and had her arrested and everything, so we hated him. And then one day, it was in the paper, he'd been found at the bottom of a cliff in Devon. Found at the bottom of a cliff in Devon, and his wife said, I don't know what's happened, I never even knew he was going to Devon. So I thought, well, isn't that wonderful, he's gone to Devon and thrown himself off a cliff. That was great. But an even better story was in Redditch, which is like not too far from us. There was a similar guy, their local Countryside Alliance guy was a farmer, and he was always, in the paper going on about the hunt. And anyway, one day he went to work on his son's farm. He was on the tractor, and the tractor went out of control. And it went in the cesspit and he drowned, you see. And he drowned in the cesspit. So on the newspaper, there was a story about this in the newspaper, on the website. And like there's comments underneath the thing, underneath the stories. And I put a comment, how did they manage to find him amongst all the other shit? We've probably got a couple of minutes, maybe one quick more question. Anyone else? Yeah?
What's your most hopeful experience?
My most hopeful experience?
Or best experience?
My best experience, what, in terms of, campaigning for animals?
Yeah,
and converting people. It's really difficult to say. It's really difficult to say. Yeah, I think the thing is, the difference is that you've kind of, when you're doing stuff that rescues animals, or when you're doing stuff that damages their property, because I remember one brilliant. I'll tell you about probably one of the most satisfactory raids we ever did. There was a place to the north of London that made and sold animal traps. We broke into this place and wrecked their office. But we found loads of beer and spirits and stuff like that. So not only did we wreck their office, but when we got home we celebrated it with their own alcohol. And what we used to do was, if we needed money, we would instead of wrecking their office equipment, we'd just nick it and we'd go and sell it down the second-hand shop. But there was one incident. People were, some of the people a bit strange. That there was this place. It was a guy. This farmer up in Cambridgeshire. He bred animals for experiments. And we went and raided his office, you see, it was in the middle of a field, isolated. I went with this group of people and raided his office. And we smashed up a load of stuff. And on the way back in the car, we were talking about it, and one guy said, "Oh, I smashed the photocopier." And this other woman said, "Oh, I smashed the phone." And then someone else said, I ripped the typewriter. And I said, "I jumped on his glasses." And they all said, "You what? You what?" I said, "I jumped on his glasses." And they went, "Oh, no, you've gone too far. You've gone too far." I said, "What do you mean you've gone too far jumping on his glasses?" I said, "I don't think so." I said, "My only regret is they weren't on his face at the time." But they wouldn't do stuff with me anymore. They go, "No, you're a terrorist. You've gone over that's going over the boundary into terrorism because you jumped on his glasses." And people had like weird. It's like strange how they had these kind of differentiating between things, you know. But it is quite funny to think back on. I said, "Well, he uses those glasses when he's like doing his, you know, doing all his books and that to sell the animals. He's wearing them. So it's a legitimate target, his glasses." Right. I suppose I'm out of time now, am I? Out of time? Right. Well, thanks so much, everyone. Yeah. And good luck with all that you're doing. Keep on fighting for all the wildlife and the badgers, and you know, it will come to an end. It will come to an end. Just got to keep going. You know, you got to be positive and hopeful and keep up the fight. And you know, animal liberation. Yeah.
Thanks, Ronnie. Can we have another round of applause, please, for Ronnie Lee? Thanks, Ronnie. Thank you.